What's up, y'all? It's Shuffle, and this video is going over the Altar of Hope slot machine, the gacha, and the unlocks and the tiers, because everything is separated by the tiers of the candle amounts. And I didn't actually know what these were, so super huge. Like, I cannot thank Ranger enough for making this. This is a really good community tool because, for one, it's just incredibly well put together. It looks nice. It's a very good presentation. But also, it's a great resource for unlocking stuff because, you know, people like me will make guides and tell you get this and that from heroes and whatever. But with this specifically, you can really know what you're after in the random outcome of the altar, the slot machine, the working fields. And this will just be helpful because you'll know when you should push to the next tier or when you should, you know, invest those candles elsewhere. So thank you, Ranger. The community will definitely appreciate this, and I'll link it below because I got permission, so thanks. And starting off, and he said he's also going to update this as needed, so that's nice. So we're going to start with the tier 1 of trinkets. So as you see here, these are your 1 candle trinket unlocks, and a lot of you aren't going to know what these are just at a glance, but I can tell you by looking at this, not a lot of these are actually great. So we have these ones up here, like the urn, the ring, the gauntlet, the sword and stuff, and this sword. One of these is a dagger. They are those trinkets where you get like a turn end or turn start, on hit, on miss. It's these ones, these distant trinkets, like adrenalizing ash, you get speed. If you miss, you get daze. So these are really easy, straightforward examples of good upside and then possible downside if something goes wrong, but they're also easy to understand. And a lot of these are okay, but they're not like amazing. Stuff like strong shackles could be better, but you know, this isn't a trinket review video. And just looking at this, there's a lot of those in this early pool, and those are okay. A couple of them are pretty nice, like this one gives you block, the gauntlet here, the ring, I think this is the dodge ring. Yeah, it is, okay. But otherwise, this mirror, for instance, this is a low torch trinket. So if you're not running low torch, then, so yeah, something like this, right? You apply to the enemy if they hit you, combo token, but if your torch is high, then you have less death blow resist, so that's really bad. So a lot of these aren't super good, because you have things like Tinderbox, which is really good for runaway specifically, but the combination of having to unlock heroes and who these trinkets are most beneficial for may not line up. So it's actually not really recommended to, at least in my opinion, to go for the trinkets early, because a lot of these are decent but not amazing, and you can unlock your hero specific trinkets instead, as well as some of them aren't helpful for the base cast. Like the first tier of stuff is going to be super important for the starter team, and some of these are decent enough, but like I said, stuff such as the Tinderbox isn't that useful if you don't have runaway. We have things like this is an antiquarian trinket, so this is a drop from her, and it's dependent on currency and stuff. But the thing too with the anti-trinket right here, cleansing class, it's actually a pretty decent trinket. The problem is antiquarian doesn't show up in the first chapter, so you can unlock this and you'll get it for that one run, but then you may not see it until you get further into the game because anti's not there. And then we have things like cruel intent. This is the cultist trinket where it'll blind you every turn, but you also get an extra 33% crit while blinded. It's really good for leper. You may not have leper unlocked, so really can't recommend the early trinkets, surprisingly. I mean, you're gonna have to get through these eventually, but yeah, at least they're 1 candle. Could be worse. Stagecoach items, however, for tier 1, I was very surprised at how clean this list is. This is a really good one. So we have the almanac for the sprawl and the fetter, the tangle, and these are the first 2 regions you get access to in denial, so these are both immediately helpful. You get the wagon upgrades for an extra wheel. I think it's 2 wheels actually, and extra armor plating. Both of these are great because the early wagon has 2 tokens of each, so you're going to do a lot of repair fights. This really helps you get past that. And this looks like the shrine map, if I'm not mistaken. And so having access to the shrine map can also be helpful for your future endeavors. Let's see, it's a scouting thing. There we go. Yeah, it is the shrine map. So guaranteed to find hero shrines. Also helpful. The collector's chandelier helps with gaining candles. Helpful to have early. The pot and still, this gives you whiskey. Whiskey is really good for building affinity. You get it early. It's also food gear. And then the alembic retort makes, I think, restorative items. The surgeon sable helps cure disease while you're traveling. Very helpful for new players and veterans alike. And then this final one makes traps. I believe it's contraptions. No, traps. Okay. So I'm not entirely sure what... Actually, I do have the list here. So out of these are what you start with. So there's no salve and there's no thunderclap in this. But I don't think anything else here is a trap. I think the smoke bomb's a contraption. So if you unlock the trap maker's kit, I don't know if it can actually give you anything because it's outside of the pool. But maybe it can. So that takes some more testing. Otherwise, that's pretty much the only miss in here. Except maybe the alembic too. But the rest of the stuff is really good actually. So Stagecoach, worth your investment. Especially early. Combat items. Some pretty good ones in here. Healing salve is the best one. You can honestly roll the working fields for combat items until you get the salve and then just stop. You don't need anything else in here to give you a huge win rate because everything in here is really nice. It helps. But the things that give you the highest win percentage is straight up just going to be the healing salve. And that's going to be that way for the rest of the game. And since it's early to unlock, then you can pick it up and then you can save your candles. You might get unlucky and have to spend all 10, but it is nice that it's in the earliest tier because it is the most helpful. And then finally, end items. The best ones here are the bread because that way you don't have to eat slime mold. And then leeches to cure disease, that's really helpful. And then maybe whiskey bottle to build affinity, but everything in here is pretty solid. The mop bucket got buffed, the book of insults is kind of mediocre, but everything else in here is pretty solid. Like speed poultice and speed bag, not as good, but not terrible. Okay, that was in items. We're going to tier 2 now, so let's see what the early or the mid tier unlocks are for because everything has 3 tiers and you can tell you're in the next tier when the candle cost goes up, so that's a really easy way to stay up on it. And for the dark impulses, since they all use the same symbol, Ranger was kind enough to show us which dark impulse you unlock with these icons. That's really nice. And for the tier 2 trinkets, these get a lot better. So we get things like, what is it, Knuckles and Reach. These two, was it like Raven's Reach or something like that? We get basically just bonus damage. These are really helpful for most damage dealers. We get Goading Gargoyle to deal with blind tokens. Get some more fun and interesting cultist trinkets like Lockjaw. This gives you more dot chance, like burn, bleed, and stuff. Then we have Sickening Silence, which is kind of hard to utilize, but actually really good when you can get it. We get things like Thrilling Tablet, which is good if things go wrong because this buffs whoever's surviving and holding it. And then as far as those upside turn start or on hit or turn end or whatever, and then negative on miss stuff, we get access to the Snuff, which is plus strength. I think it's weaken if you miss. By the way, Sickening Silence too, since I'm actually here, is a trinket where if you are diseased, every time you get hit by something, you apply a 6x3 blight to it. So every time you get hit, you have a chance to retaliate with 18 damage. Very strong. You just have to get a disease that doesn't destroy your characters. So there are a few out there like rabies that don't, just end the run. So if you can get one of those and silence, then it pops off. But otherwise, we were talking about the, I think it's Stirring Snuff. So let me find it. Actually, I want to see this. It is Raven's Reach. I knew it. Where? It's in here somewhere, right? There it is. So turn start, You get strength, gain on miss, you know, weaken. So there's a few of these in here. You get access to Snappy Swig, one of the best ones in the game. Clenching Claw is really good for your tanks because it has a chance to throw negative tokens at enemies. Then we have stuff like Cuppa for Blight characters, Brew for Blight characters. And, you know, if you ever do want to see these, I know I'm talking over some of them, but I'll link the wiki and stuff too. Because otherwise I'll be making an hour-long video just diving into stats. And that's not the whole point of this. It's just to show you what is good, and then you can look at the stats if you want. So we got some more low torch stuff, like Covert Cloak. This is, you get stealth at low torch. Peculiar Pods gives you debuff penetration, as well as a chance to cure disease when you hit enemies, which is nice. I think I talked about Swig. This is one of the best just in the game. Really good on Highwayman and Grave Robber because I can get high enough speed to proc it. So that's cool. But otherwise, trinkets get much better in tier 2. They have a pretty bad tier 1, but they have a really solid tier 2. So if you get up to this point, then it's probably worth starting to put a lot of candles into it. Stagecoach items. So these are interesting here. So we get more production items like the compress kit and the... Actually, I don't know if compress kit produces. It increases stack size. Let me see. Yeah, okay, the Alembic is what makes stuff, so it has synergy there, but it increases stacking. And poultices can be really good because the poultices, you know, they stack indefinitely, and if you find a bunch, you can nullify certain boss mechanics as you just resist them. We have the Hospital Scouting map, which is alright. T-Service, really good for positive affinity. And then this is... What is the scouting? It's not the hoarder thing. Let me see. Gotta find more scouting stuff. I don't recognize that off the top. It is the hoarder. The hoarder decoding signal. This actually isn't super good early because you don't have enough trinkets most likely to make use of it. Or enough just unlocks in general. Hoarder is really, really good when you have a lot of unlocks. And this is really good wagon gear when you have a lot of trinkets available because he has a huge selection and you can get some really good stuff just by going there. Like I have won runs just finding him with this and having a bunch of baubles like that. The run I did yesterday that I streamed where I did Act 2, I had really cheap trinket prices and then I found him in the 3rd region and just bought like 6 things. It was really cool. But other than that, we have some more stuff for the wagon. This is blueprint stuff. I think you can find more stagecoach upgrades that way, which is alright. Food box, this increases food that you find, like the amount of it, and it gives you disease resist. Then we get the other 2 almanacs, so we get the Shroud and the Fetter. These are appropriately tiered because by the time you get out of Act 1, then you get access to the other 2 regions, so these become more relevant. And then we have Loathing Resist as a Lantern, which is pretty good. For combat items, not too strong in this tier. There are a lot of damage ones. And then we have Shred of Decency, which removes worship from enemies. This can be helpful. But otherwise, the best ones out of this are probably Shimmering Powder for the stealth, Shred of Decency to deal with cultists to get worship, and Noisemaker for your tanks. Otherwise, the rest of it's damage. Fishnet's good for a boss specifically, and a couple other things, but not high priority. So combat items actually not as good in tier 2. Really good tier 1, not as good tier 2. And items, some really good ones in here. So we get some good food here, apples and cheese. This gives you debuff resist and 20% HP. Boxing gloves, dartboard, pretty good for affinity building. This is a book of body tales, and this lowers stress, I believe. So it's pretty good if you're struggling with that. But the winners here are the Whiskey Barrel. This is really good for affinity. Whetstone sometimes can be good for your damage dealers. Nightshade Concoction gives you Deathblow resist, which is really, really helpful for the mountain. And then we have the Songbook of Touching Dirges, which gives you affinity for your whole team at a pretty good rate. So these are really good. I think the only 2 I didn't talk about were My Time in the Desert gives you a chance of giving you stealth at the start of your turn. And then Knotted Rope has 2 people potentially get strength at the start of their turn in the next region, but also this can give you some negative quirks, like I think sprained ankle, something like that, or maybe sprained wrist. Okay, now we're already blitzing through this. So tier 3 trinkets. Let's see what we get. We get some powerhouses out of the tier 3, understandably so. With the tier 3 trinkets in mind, we get access to Enlightening Element, which is pretty good for a fast damage dealer because you get dodge and you have a chance to burn stuff, which is nice. Compass, just one of the best trinkets in the game. It's something where it's about 20% chance to get either block, dodge, strength, or crit, or the other 20% is 1 stress. Easy enough downside to mitigate, but huge upside. Really good trinket. The other winners in this tier are probably, I would say, Sparkle Bowl. This is another thing where you hit the enemy, I believe, and you hit them with a bunch of debuffs. You have a chance to hit these. So you can daze them, blind, weaken, vuln, or immobilize. The immobilize is kind of the weakest one out of this, but the rest of these are really good. And out of the cultist trinkets, these two aren't that good. Snap Judgment got buffed, and it's really nice on your speedy characters. Temptation is one of the best trinkets in the game, even though it is terrifying. So you have a chance of either getting an extra action or taking 1 damage, but you also have no more death blow resist, or it drops it to whatever the current lowest is. It's either like 5% or 0 or 33. I forget what freaking patch is on live at this point. Yeah, so extra action. Temptation is incredibly powerful. The Appalling Apron, this converts any damage over time effect into regeneration, which is really nice. Spike Skull Cap is okay. Pig Sticker and the Mallet, these are low torch trinkets. Not really worth it, just because really hard to get to low torch and stay there these days because we don't have Infernal capping us at 1. Otherwise, yeah. So the winners: Enlightening Element, Compass, Snap Judgment, Temptation, Apron. Those are the best ones out of this. So honestly, if you get all those that I just mentioned, probably stop rolling. You don't need the rest of these. Stagecoach gear. Kind of a miss at the end. Maybe not quite. There are some good things here. So Assay gear, I'm amazed this hasn't been nerfed yet. This gives you an extra 4 gold every time you get gold. So you can go through a region and get, no joke, like 100 from this thing. You get so much money, and the earlier you get it, the better, because you will never need money again once you have this thing, unless you get it at the mountain, and then it does nothing. Trinket Organizer, this helps you find extra trinkets, which is nice. Merchant Guild Seal reduces the cost of everything. That can be helpful. Stew Pot it's regrettable that it's so late. Like, it's a tier 3 unlock, because you start with the griddle. The Flapjack griddle produces food, and you don't need another food production item at that point. I mean, having access to 2 just to increase your odds is nice, but like, you already have Flapjacks, so you don't really have to push for this, is what I'm trying to say. These are production stagecoach items, so again, that really depends on what other items you have unlocked to make them good. And then we have a Scouting Telescope, which is nice, but scouting isn't as important as it was in the first game. And then Wagon Jack, I'm surprised this isn't something you get early, because if you get a repair fight, this pretty much gives you your turn back if someone has to spend their turn repairing the wagon. And the fact that it's so late is a bit weird, because by this point you have access to armor plating, the wheels, and you've probably unlocked your stagecoach stuff in the altar. That gives you your 3rd token for wheels and armor, so you're not hitting as many repair fights. So this gets worse. I mean, it's better than nothing, but it does get worse at the end. Combat items. A couple winners. I mean, a couple of these are really good. Some of these are decent. We have the AoE damage over time grenade. So we have the fire grenade, the spore grenade, and the scrap grenade. So this bleed, fire, and blight. Those are decent. Some characters or trinkets make really good use of them. Warhorn gives your whole party 2 strength. This is a really good item. Triage Kit is 1 heal for 75%, which is good, but Healing Salve is just better, and you get that way earlier. Holy Water removes all negatives that can be cleansed and combo tokens, so this is very powerful for some encounters, so it's a really good one to have. Dazzler has a chance to like daze, stun, and I think lower speed. Let me see. Pyrotechnic Dazzler, yeah. Oh, and vuln. So 2 of these at random. You can blind them, daze them, stun them, vuln them, or give them -4 speed for 3 turns. This is a really good one. So that is pretty nice. Then we have Wilbur's Flag, which is good for anyone that likes combo and does direct damage. The issue is these 2 right here, the javelins and the flag, you have to get them out of the sluice. The sluice isn't guaranteed to be there. You're not guaranteed to see these, so it's not that important that you get these. And then finally for in items, you get some of the best ones. So you get Amorous Ballads. This is an affinity building book, which is really good. It's like +3, -1 at 80 to 20, which is really helpful. Candles and Chocolate, it's either 1, 2, or 3 affinity, which is really nice. Meditative Totem and Wild Tea, these cleanse negative quirks, which can be helpful. The Book of Rousing Ballads or Rousing Tunes or something like that, this gives your whole team speed, really important, super good. The Eldritch Idol, I forget what it's exactly called, this gives you like strength, crit, or speed, also good. Pig is huge for affinity and stress management. Poetry can give you Sanguine as a quirk, which is really nice. And it lowers a bunch of stress on 2 people and gives them affinity. And then finally we have the Defensive Holy Beads, which give you, I think, block and speed and maybe dodge. So overall, really interesting stuff. And I would say, obviously by the time you get to tier 3, you know, you want all the in items. You don't really need all the combat items. Don't really need all the stagecoach items. Need a couple of the trinkets. So I think, honestly, the big winners are in items tier 2, in items tier 3. In items just good at every level, aren't they? Tier 3 trinkets, those are winners. Tier 2 combat items, only a couple winners. Stagecoach items at tier 2 aren't that good. Trinkets at tier 2 are much better than tier 1. In items at tier 1 are really good. Combat items at tier 1 are good just for the salve. Stagecoach items at 1 are super good. And trinkets at tier 1 are not. So, there you go. There's your quick and dirty list. That was really interesting. I'm going to try and make use of this next time I use a fresh profile. So that's it for the video. Thanks, Ranger, for doing it. I will link the wiki and the list down below for your viewing convenience. But yeah, so out of the other things, I forget what I didn't take enough pictures because I haven't done a fresh profile in a minute, but the starting combat items, like I was saying before, you don't get these 2, so you don't get salve or grenade, but you get the rest of this. And then for in items, you don't get the bread, the whiskey, or the poultice, but you get cards, which are not that good, but you get stun poultice, which is very important, and whiskey flask, which is good too. So that's enough for the video. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.